Let's explore some of the other tools that may not be so intuitive in Visual Studio. One of them is the image editor. In your icons directory, you'll notice that we have a bitmap image. When you double-click on the image, this launches the image editor. This allows you to edit bitmaps pixel by pixel using a color management interface as well as a drawing pane. Notice you also have the presence of a new toolbar that allows you to do selections, either of shapes or of colors. It also allows you to draw certain elements onto the page or airbrush certain elements out. For those of you working with bitmaps, it makes it quite convenient not to have to step outside Visual Studio to edit your images. Let's continue to build out our base form. Close the image editor. Close the base form designer. As you can see, our form is a blank canvas. Let's start adding some chrome to the form, such as the global navigation. Visual Studio 2008 comes with a set of pre-configured Windows standard toolbars and tool strips. Let's take a look at how we can customize the out-of-the-box functionality to create a navigation system worthy of Outlook using the tool strip control. Take a look on the left-hand side in your toolbox. Scroll down until you see Menus and Toolbars. These controls provide a standard look and feel to your menu, your tool strip, and your status strip on your form. By using these, you don't have to write any code to have a standard look and feel for your windows. Let's take one of these controls and customize it to create an Outlook-style navigation pane on the left-hand side. We'll use this navigation pane to iterate through all the variety of functionalities that we will add in this application. Because this is our base form, any child form that inherits from this form will automatically have this navigation. We'll start with the tool strip control. The tool strip is a very powerful and customizable control for building highly functional, professional-looking toolbars. It has two interfaces for designing the tool strip. It has an in-place interactive interface, and it also has an items collection editor for tool strips. We'll be using both. Let's go ahead and take that and drag that onto our designed surface. Notice, it immediately docks to the top of the form, assuming the standard position of a traditional Windows tool strip. You can see some samples of those up above in Visual Studio itself. In our case, we're looking to mimic the Outlook-style vertical navigation pane, which enables you to access your inbox, contacts, calendar, all by clicking on buttons that run down the left-hand side of your screen. To do that, let's go ahead and change some of the properties of our tool strip control. Go to the View Properties window. If it's not already showing, select View and select Properties window. Here we can change the setting for a tool strip. The first thing we'll want to do is rename this. Let's go to the top and select the name. It's always a good practice to use the object type as a prefix for your naming convention. So in this case, our object name would start with tool strip. Although this sometimes makes the object's names lengthy and oftentimes unwieldy, it does optimize clarity so other team members can readily interpret your code. So here, because the tool strip is on our base form and will be used throughout our application, we'll give it a name, Tool Strip Main. Now let's set a few more settings. First, let's change the Allow Item Reorder to be True. The Allow Item Reorder makes it possible for your users to change the order of items on your tool strip and even move items across different types of tool strips by alt-clicking and dragging the tool strip items. You're probably already familiar with this functionality as you've seen it in a variety of different Windows applications. Next, let's go ahead and set Can Overflow to be false. This feature is oftentimes very useful. This allows for a drop-down box, as you see up here, for any overflow of items, so that when the window is resized, as we'll do with Visual Studio itself, you can see that the overflow functionality moves any extra buttons onto an overflow pane, so that when the window gets smaller, you're only seeing the buttons that are most commonly used. The overflow pane will get larger and larger as the window gets smaller and smaller. Let's maximize Visual Studio. Because our tool strip is going to contain major functionality and serve as a navigation system for our entire application, we want to set Can Overflow to be false, because we always want to see the buttons on our tool strip regardless of the size of the form. Next, let's work with the most interesting visual property. It's called Dock. If you click on the down arrow, you can see the dock property gives you a little visual diagram to indicate where your tool strip will dock in relation to its container form. In this case, the container form is the actual Windows form. By default, it will dock to the top, as you can see on your screen. Let's change that to be left. Now we have our tool strip on the left-hand side. The dock property is the most crucial property to set for a tool strip. It will change the entire positioning of the control relative to its container. Dock is one of the most commonly used user interface properties. Along with Anchor, it helps dynamically lay out your application interface without having to write code. Next, let's go ahead and manipulate the font style. For the font name, type in Tahoma. When it pops up in the dialog box, select it. And for size, we'll leave it as 12. Select OK. Notice that the Properties window for each property that's been changed becomes bold. So you notice we've changed stock and font. They're now bold so you can understand which properties have been changed and which ones are still in the default condition. Next, let's go ahead and change the grip style. We'll change that to be hidden. The grip style allows you to drag different components by highlighting on the grip, as you can see by the dotted lines, and moving the tool strip around. We don't want our main navigation to be moved around, so we'll go ahead and select Hidden for grip style. Let's scroll down to Layout style. By default, we have a vertical stack with overflow. This makes sense because our tool strip is on the left-hand side. That way, all our icons will be stacked one on top of another. If we had changed that to horizontal, the icons would be laid out left to right across the form. That doesn't make much sense, so we'll go ahead and change this to be vertical stack with overflow. Visual Studio is smart enough to know when you dock something on the left to choose vertical. When you dock a tool strip on the top or the bottom, then horizontal makes sense. We do have a couple other options here, such as flow and table. The flow and table layout does not allow you to work with overflow, and it doesn't render a grip. These two would be useful options for us. Next, we'll go ahead and change render mode. The render mode right now is set to Manager Render Mode, which provides a smooth gradient control for our tool strip. We can change that to either System or Professional. System creates flat, IE-like controls, solid drag handles, and continuous progress bars, versus Professional, which gives us an office-like look and feel. It also adopts a color scheme from the operating system. Let's go ahead and choose Professional as our choice for rendering. Next, we'll set size. Right now, size is set to 32,692. Let's change that to 200, 750. And lastly, the text. The text property is the visible property. Right now, we don't need a text property on our tool strip, so we'll go ahead and delete that to be an empty string.